Did you build a home in Skyrim like this one?
What's up, y'all? Big Snoop D-O double G. I want to welcome y'all to my house.
Maybe you decided to buy a home instead in a beautiful Skyrim city like here in Solitude. Or even Whiterun.
Do you get to the Cloud District very often? Oh, what am I saying? Of course you don't. Do you?
But have you ever thought about the cost and comparisons between building a homestead or buying one? Today I'm going to be taking a meticulous look at the finer details of these homes, the square footage, 1, 2, 3, the labor cost, this blows, and so much more like HOA fees. Oh, hold on guys, here comes the board president. Hey! The carriage was parked on my side. I'll then compile all my findings at the end of the video to show you the best path forward for either building or buying a house in Skyrim. Alright, let's go. So how do we even do this, considering I'm not a house expert or a carpenter or whatever you'd call someone who is a house expert? Well, first thing we have to do is solve the riddle of how much building a house costs. That means the material, the initial land price, and the time spent building and gathering everything you need. No, we can't use any glitches or exploitations. We have to really immerse ourselves in the world of Skyrim. Become the average Skyrim player, not someone who looks up guides to everything in the game. So the first thing I did was head to Dawnstar to ask about buying some land.
Can't sleep well no matter how much drink I put in me.
Come to Dawnstar at a strange time, friend. Seems everyone in the town is having nightmares. When I came
You
of
come to
age,
Dawnstar at a bad time.
If you're here about the nightmares, I'm afraid my pleas to the College of Winterhold go unheard.
Not this bullshit. Don't forget that in any hold or city, you'll have to gain favor with the Jarl there to be able to purchase a house or the land. That means doing a bunch of meaningless tasks for the fine folk of these villages.
Frost took my husband years ago. He was a good man.
We're not going to compare tasks for approval of the Jarls because really it comes down to preferences of quests and stuff. And we're also assuming that you have the money to buy the house or the land at the same point in time. Why the hell does this guy walk so slow to this place? Why has no one fixed that? Yeah, I'm coming. Once you've completed your task, then you'll talk to the Jarl and purchase the land for 5,000 gold. Once we get here, we have some crafting tables and benches and stuff. We now have to pick our small house layout. Once you start building your walls and foundations, you'll need supplies that you see right here. Just know that most Skyrim houses are made of nails and hinges in this world. For our experiment, we're going to assume that the person building the house has already collected all resources needed beforehand, because that'll just make things a lot easier. Time will play a factor into each of these segments, and I've calculated the average amount of time it would take to build each portion roughly if you were an average Skyrim player. Time's an important factor in our calculations because of labor cost, but we'll get to that later in the video. Right, so this is the amount of resources that we will need for this portion of the house. And here is the cost of those resources. I'll dive into later how we got these costs, but for now it's just for us to keep a good frame of reference and to keep everything nice and tidy. Also took about this much time to build this segment, but I'm adding another 2 minutes because the average player would need to figure out how the actual process works in the first place. Also, I feel like 2 minutes is pretty generous. Now we cruise on to the main hall, and it's pretty much the same concept. Build each layer with the resources we already have gathered. Every house you build in Skyrim will have these two structures that we're putting in place. Here's those totals for the main hall. The time on this is lower because I'm assuming the average player now knows how to handle the build at this point. Like I said before, it is a rough estimate because we're just assuming a lot of things, and you know what they say about that. In reality, you could probably take off a bit of time or add some, but this is about as good as it's gonna get. Okay, this is the important part when building a house in Skyrim. In our comparisons of houses you can buy the way, I'm only talking about the vanilla houses, just so everyone's aware. But in our comparisons, we can really only go by one metric: square footage. Taking out all preference and biases of these rooms. We only want the rooms that have the most square footage. We'll get to pros and cons of the houses later, but for now we need to do some measuring to figure out which rooms are the largest. We can automatically assume that the towers are out because they're circles. There's no way they will measure up to the other two. You'll also notice that some rooms have a flat roof and others have a slant. That'll be important for later. Let's start with a flat roof room. Probably wondering how I find the square footage in Skyrim. I'll show you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now we just take the length times the width and we have our area. Obviously, this isn't exactly feet. I call them Skyrim square feet. It doesn't matter anyways, because we can use this metric to measure everything else and then it will all add up. The armory is pretty sizable at 210 Skyrim square feet, but I needed to measure it against a different room to see which one was bigger: the kitchen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Turns out the kitchen is actually smaller in total. The length is longer, but we lose square footage here. I started to have a theory, but I had to test it on the other rooms. Turns out my theory was correct, and the flat roof rooms are the same size as the other flat roof rooms, and the slanted roofs are all the same size as each other as well. The slanted, as you can see here, are 26 by 7, and the flats are 21 by 10. Here's the resources and cost of each flat room. Building all three will give us more bang for our buck, and besides, if it was a real house, you could choose what you wanted to place in each room anyways, so it's for the best. If you're curious about cost comparison here, here's the armory versus the kitchen. Now that we have all three rooms built, we need to build every single upgrade. When all is said and done, both houses when compared need to be at their maximum cost and furnishings. That means all the miscellaneous stuff has to be completed and we have to count those resources as well. Here's the totals for those. Also, this took a long time to research and we still have a ways to go. Now that everything is built, I had to find the square footage of the house in total, and that wasn't easy. Like I said, I don't do construction and I'm not even that good at math. I had to learn from Google how to do all the nooks and crannies and add them up. You guys are seeing a fraction of the time it actually took me, so enjoy the fruits of my labor. I'll give you an example. Check out this little corner thing I measured. Also, the upstairs was a bitch and a half. To the cellar we go, and this one was a lot easier because the rooms are pretty square here. Here's the totals of each section's square foot. All right, Jesus. That is the build house done, sort of. Here are the resources and time spent that it took to build exactly what we have here. Honestly, I was pretty surprised. Without any furnishings or upgrades, we're sitting at a total of 11,349 gold for all of this. At this point, I was already assuming this is a shut case. You probably are too. But you're in for some surprises, more than one. And I promise that's not clickbait. Now we need to go measure the biggest houses in Skyrim and see how they compare to our beauty right here. But first, I don't want to leave you guys hanging on how I found the prices of materials in Skyrim. It was simple. I went to multiple vendors and I compared pricing. The loggers are selling 20 wood for 200 gold, equating to 1 wood for 10 gold each. I then sought out the blacksmiths and discovered that iron ingots were 22 gold at multiple vendors. While I was doing that, I found the pricing for the corundum ingots as well at 124 gold each. Pricey. You're probably screaming at me about, that's not everyone's prices, mine are different. Stop. Lock in. I made sure that I had every baseline point possible in speech with no points spent in the tree. I'm also not wearing any clothing that would affect any pricing. Besides the suit, they love it. Ground zero here. And this is what I would expect of the average player. They spent all their perk points in archery and stealth, guys. Okay, so the clay and the stone are a bit more complicated. Yes, you can buy them if you have a steward, but that seems redundant when there are free deposits inches from the workstation. So what I had to do was time how long it takes to gather the materials. When you mine in the normal standing position, it's about 6 seconds for every 4 material. But if you do it the fast way, it's about 4.5 seconds. I can now take my total amount of material and divide it by 4 and then times it by 4.5 seconds. And then I would have the sum. I then times it by the gold per second amount that we'll talk about here soon in the future, giving us the total amount of gold spent. Just know that it works, alright? Now let's get to the big houses in Skyrim. You were thinking it, I was thinking it. Of course we go to Solitude when you're looking for big houses in Skyrim. Ah, Solitude. A regal home for the most cultured side of Skyrim.
Some gate
Traitor!
I go to Sovngarde.
Cloudspire Manor was probably your first thought when I said we need to measure the biggest houses in Skyrim, and I thought the same thing. So I headed to Solitude to acquire the house. The initial cost of this bad boy? 25,000 gold. The most expensive vanilla house in Skyrim. First things first, let's get to stepping. By the way, this place was hell to deal with. Absolutely ludicrous with furniture in the way and tons of arches and smaller squares. I even got stuck at one point.
I'm stuck in a tree! I'm stuck in a tree! I'm stuck in a tree!
With all that said and done, here's the total of the Skyrim square feet. Pretty sizable, but I'm sure you're already seeing just how much smaller it is compared to our built house. Here's the initial cost of the house. And here's to have it fully upgraded and furnished. This can change depending on if you have Hearthfire or not, but obviously we do in this scenario. And here is the total cost, a massive sum of 39,000 gold. I thought, there's no way that the biggest house in Skyrim was this. And boy, I was wrong. Welcome to Windhelm Hall. I think that's how you say it. Right in the corner of Windhelm. I bet a lot of you weren't expecting this place. It's pretty overlooked. Maybe for good reason, but I find it charming with its murder-esque atmosphere and the sundown town it exists in. No, nothing wrong here at all. Let's get to work, you guys already know the drill. This place is massive, by the way. All the rooms here are pretty much square and there's a ton of space. Took me quite a while to figure out the measurements, but it definitely got easier at this point. But the previous owner let me in on a little secret. Apparently, there's a hidden room. Even more space. Let's check it out. Oh God. Oh no. Okay, so let's start on this wall and count this way. Windhelm Hall is sitting on a whopping 1,445 Skyrim square feet. Far larger than Proudspire Manor, which is pretty surprising. Told you there'd be surprises. And its total cost with all upgrades is 22,250 gold. Almost 17,000 less than Proudspire. I measured other houses and nothing got close to this place, so here it is. This is the comparison bought house to our built one. Before we can see how they stack up against each other, I have to explain how we figured out the labor costs and use that for the time spent building the other home. Well, it won't be me explaining. It'll be one of the channel's other co-hosts, Paris, our resident expert on economics. Like, for real, guys. If you like this type of stuff, check out his other vids on the channel. They're absolutely amazing.
Without exploits, we picked 4 of the best money-making ways in Skyrim. The first way is you go to Halted Stream Camp and mine the ore, and you take everything that you can. Then you get the transmute spell, and you transmute all iron to gold ore. Then make golden rings and make a quick buck. rinse and repeat to become a rich mage. But you have to wait a month in-game before the camp resupply, and you'll be doing a lot of sleeping. In fact, it'll be 15 minutes and 32 seconds worth of sleeping. But Mason didn't have to wait and transmute because he was in God mode, so we accommodated for that. If you wait a month in-game, it's 12 minutes and 30 seconds. So the total is the 12 minutes and 30 seconds plus 15 minutes and 32 seconds, giving us 1,682 seconds for labor time. Our lad Mason swept 2,398 coin from this endeavor. Now we could do the math of 2,398 coin divided by 1,682 seconds to say he obtained 1.4 coins for his labor per second, but we still have 3 activities to account for. Since we don't want to take an average of an average in a few moments here, we will add coin gained across all 4 activities and divide it by total time spent working to give us a true labor cost. Next up is chopping wood. With 1 minute and 38 seconds and with netting 12 gold, the average labor cost is 0.12 gold per second. Then we have dungeon crawling. Killing on site and looting everything in between, 7 minutes and 33 seconds later, 1,087 gold was obtained. So with 433 seconds in total, this tells us we nabbed just over 2.3 gold per second. Finally, the more complex task is finding salmon roe, getting hist carp from different lakes, and steel salt from the barrels on the Riften docks. And then we make as many potions as possible and sell them on the black market. Just kidding. But we did sell them, and Macer did this in 9 minutes and earned 1,234 gold. This is 540 seconds, thus we netted over 2.2 gold per second. So, this leaves us with 4,731 coin and 2,773 seconds well spent, giving us a grand total of 1.7 gold per second.
So there you have it. This is how we calculate the time spent building these houses and how much it might cost. Obviously, it's not perfect, and anyone would be hard-pressed to make a system that is. In fact, it's impossible, because every person that plays Skyrim has a unique experience and how they play. We just have to take educated guesses and best averages. Point is, don't take it too seriously, because it's not that serious. Now that you know how we calculate time into the cost of the builds, let's get to the grand total and compare these houses. Let's start with Hierom. The total Skyrim square footage is 1,445. Massive when compared to the other vanilla houses in Skyrim. And the total price of the house with all furnishings and upgrades is 22,250 gold. A fairly big sum of money, but definitely comparable to our build. Now let's take a look at our built house. The grand total of the square footage is 2,123 Skyrim square feet. Nearly 1,000 more feet when compared to our biggest home you can buy. That is already a massive advantage. And the grand total of the house, when all the time is factored in, all the material, and now all the upgrades and furnishings, which equal 9,500 gold, we get an incredible 20,849 gold. That's right, it's far bigger and slightly cheaper to its counterpart. I was even going to calculate what it would cost if you built all the furnishings instead of purchasing, which would be a fraction of the cost, but it doesn't really matter now with this price. The pricing is slightly more comparable than the footing, but it's pretty much a black and white scenario. Or is it? Let's look at some pros and cons of living in each house. In the built house, you have to actually build the house by hand, and this can take a lot of time to gather all the coin necessary to buy all the material and then build it yourself. Some will say this is a pro because it's fun, and others a con because it's too time consuming. The house is isolated besides either your family or your servants. This can also be a pro or con, it just depends on the person. There is no security. Your steward may fight, and even your horse sometimes, but you're subject to all sorts of attacks at your homestead and no one will be around to help you. There are no shops or merchants near your homesteads. You'll have to make a journey to a nearby town or village to purchase goods. But you do get a fast travel waypoint. It's far more customizable, and you can hire a bard to play music for you personally. And last, but most important, it's far larger and less expensive than any other house you can buy in vanilla Skyrim. And for the house you can buy, it's easy access. This includes the purchasing and furnishing of these homes. The absolute biggest pro for these houses is just how easy it is to get into one and not have to worry about anything. You're almost always located in a large city with security. There will always be guards nearby in times of need. You're close to any shop or trader that you need. You live in a city that's full of people. This could also be a pro or con for anyone. And unfortunately, there is no direct fast travel point, and you also live in a murder house with ghosts now. Probably. Also, Windhelm is full of racists, which sucks.
Hey, maybe the reason these Greyskins don't help in the war is because they're Imperial spies.
If you've got some time, stop by my House of Curiosity.
And the worst offender, the house is smaller and more expensive than its counterpart. I'm sure there are more you guys can think of, but these were the ones that stood out to me. All in all, it's time to pick a winner. And I'm sure this comes as no surprise to anyone, but there were still surprises, guys, don't forget that. And of course I pick Hiram Hall. I mean, it's just, alright, I'm kidding. The winner is the house that you build. For that much room and at the price, the pros far outweigh the cons in this situation. Well, that was fun. What now?
What about Fallout 4? Can't you, like, build settlements and stuff?
Good idea. That could be interesting.